Welcome to the VET S.O.S podcast. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. We're back with another great episode with Wounded Warrior Project. Today, we're talking about money and benefits. So definitely get out the pen and paper, folks. This is definitely one you want to take notes for. This is something we all care about. So make sure that you are tuning in, taking notes, and preparing any questions. If you got questions, send them on over. We'll go ahead and make sure they get to these gentlemen, and we'll get you some answers. So fresh off recording his first country album where he sings every song backwards so he gets everything back. How you doing today, Keith?
I'm doing awesome, Sean. And it's funny, we're talking about money and benefits and finances today because I played that album backwards and I got my truck back, I got my dog back, I got my credit score back. It was awesome. So yeah, it's apparently the whole plan's on vinyl now. So it's great to be here, Sean. How are you doing? I haven't asked you that in a while.
I am doing fantastic and just thoroughly enjoying the series of interviews that we're doing, man. Talking about Wounded Warrior Project and really digging in and finding out some of these services. I know I've already learned quite a bit that I didn't know before. And so this is just amazing. And I hope this is truly beneficial to our audience and that they're pulling stuff out of here that's going to help them.
Yeah, ditto.
So, all right, well, let's jump into this and I'm going to apologize up front. I already asked this gentleman his name, and I know I'm going to screw it up just because that's what I do, unfortunately. So hopefully we get this right. Ashish Bajaj.
Very
Close?
good. Yeah.
All right.
No, you're right on. Spot on.
Awesome. Is a financial educator with the Wounded Warrior Project, teaching and supporting veterans who are trying to improve their financial circumstances. Ashish works directly with clients as a financial planner from 2013 to 2022. Prior to that, he was a manager at the American Medical Association, leading two of the AMA's largest physician groups. He also spent several years as a strategy consultant at Booz Allen Hamilton. Michael Lorey is the Southeast Benefits Regional Director at Wounded Warrior Project. Before being named as the Southeast Regional Benefits Director, Michael was a Regional Benefits Director for the West, overseeing Veteran Affairs and Department of Defense claims out of 8 states, as well as Guam and Japan. Michael spent 21 years in the U.S. Navy, serving as a mass communication specialist, and retired as a public affairs officer. All right, gentlemen, how you doing today?
Good. Glad to be here.
Doing great. How's it going?
Oh, fantastic. And we're excited that you're here today. This has just been a tremendous week, full of information, and you guys probably have two of the topics that people are most interested in. So we won't waste any time on that. We're going to jump right into it. But before we do, Ashish, we'll go ahead and start with you. You're not a veteran, but you're working with veterans. How did that happen? What led you to working with the veteran community?
Yeah. So, I mean, the short story is just that Wounded Warrior Project was doing something that I really wanted to do, which was to help people who were struggling with money issues improve their financial situations. So, I think this is a very similar story that I have with a lot of other teammates of mine who were on the same team doing the same kind of work. I grew up in without a lot of money. We're very, very solidly middle-class family, but my parents were smart enough to move us to a town with a lot of wealthier people. We weren't on the wealthy part of town up on the hill. We were kind of in the valley, with just sort of regular folks. But just being around people who had a lot of knowledge about money slowly sort of helped me understand things. Now, my parents, they were very frugal. They struggled a little bit. Not, it wasn't horrible, but money was tight, but they made things work. But I could see that there were all these families that, had a different style of living. And over time, I, started to pick up some tips and tricks from them. When I first started working, my best friend actually got me involved with, some financial companies and investing. And it was stuff that I never even imagined our family could do. And when I learned it, I was really happy. Within a couple of years, I built up a little nest egg, and I just started to notice that my stress level drastically went down because I had saved up some money and I felt good. And at that point, I realized what I really wanted to do was bring those kinds of lessons and bring that kind of experience to other people who needed it. And like I said, Wounded Warrior Project gave me that opportunity to work directly with veterans to help people who needed more guidance on money issues. And so I'm very happy doing that kind of work.
That's fantastic, and definitely love the work you're doing. Michael, let's jump to you. Tell us about your military transition. How'd that go out of the military?
Well, it didn't go very well, to be honest. But on a serious note, it was probably almost as stressful as any horrific things I had seen in the military. It was super, super stressful because I didn't know what I was going to do next. You think you have a plan until you see that retirement check and it's not the same as your military paycheck. And your disability claim, when you file that, it takes months before you receive anything. And more times than not, is not the percentage that you're probably supposed to be getting in the first place. So I transitioned out of San Diego, and went through TAP class. And TAP class, fire hose of information, right? So I didn't remember much of anything in TAP class. And after going through all that, I said, I have to serve. I have to serve. So I joined Wounded Warrior Project to try and make transition better for veterans.
That's fantastic. And we're glad you made that transition to that point. Because the one thing that we always need in this community is people who care. And that's just absolutely wonderful that you guys are both serving the community in this way, and with such an amazing organization that touches so many. So, Keith, what you got, man? What are you thinking here? You all set on your money?
I mean, I'm not doing too bad, but I could definitely relate with what Michael said. Yeah, I mean, my transition out, it was, I'm a geek. So I remember like, I figured out my bottom dollar, like, what do I need to make just to survive, right? Forget about breaking even. But just to survive, it was a terrifying time in transition. And so I'm actually just kind of curious, like Michael, I didn't even have this question loaded up or queued up until it just popped in my head. But I've often been trying to figure out, or for a while, I've been trying to figure out like how long, and if there's any studies out there about how long it takes a service member to get back to where they were, right? When they were making what they were making, and this question's for either of you, but like what they were making while they're in uniform. I've found maybe about 3 to 5 years, but I'm just curious if you all have come across anything like that, because I do a lot of mentorship myself, and I always kind of rip that Band-Aid off of like, hey, you're probably going to take a pay cut. But I always try to give them that light at the end of the tunnel, like, hey, within X number of years, you'll be back to where you were. Have you all seen any kind of studies or numbers that speak to that?
What we saw, it takes about 4 to 7 years before
4 to
they
7,
make
okay.
what they were making in the military. And and at that point, they're either still struggling badly and coming to us for assistance, or they're, just thriving. You really don't see that middle ground happen that often. But Hashish could probably speak more to that, because working in his field, he sees the struggles that veterans are going through with their financial pay.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of interesting because not everybody that comes to our program really is really low income. People sometimes have a good amount of income. There certainly are a number of people that they've had trouble finding lucrative work, or they're in the process, or they've changed jobs, or quite a few of them have been working for the government. As we know, the last year has been very rough on federal government employees. But I do also routinely talk to people who are government contractors who have some great skills. They get paid, what a lot of people would love to get paid, but they still have some money issues here and there. And so, we see a variety of stories. But people can find themselves struggling no matter how much money they're bringing home every month.
Yeah. And how do you keep it positive, right? I mean, a lot of times they're coming to you and they're stressed out, they're wore out, they're tired. Like, how do you help someone see a path forward, see a light at the end of the tunnel when they're in just that sheer survival mode?
Yeah,
Well, that's
so I would say, let me just do a quick discussion here. We do a quick diagnosis, right? It's kind of like, we talk to them, dig in a little bit deeply, try and find out what's going on. Do they have a problem? Like, they just don't have enough income? Is it that they have, some mental health issues that are getting in the way of good money management? Or, is it something else? Are there, have they just been overwhelmed by life and things that have happened to them? And so we kind of try and diagnose and then focus on, okay, here's the main thing that's creating stress in your life, and let's see what we can do to address it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do a very similar thing. What benefits aren't you accessing that could supplement your income? Because there's many, right? At 100% rate, a lot of states give you free property tax. A lot of states give you don't have to pay for registration on your vehicle. Some of the hobbies that folks are engaging in, you get free access to state parks depending on your percentage, or even education, right? So a lot of folks aren't accessing those benefits, particularly state benefits, because at certain percentages, there's a lot of state benefits. So really, you don't even have to access VA or DOD benefits. Looking at state benefits can supplement that income.
That's a good point. Yeah, the state benefits, especially depending on the state you live in, could be amazing. Um, I want to jump into the process here in a second, but real quick, Ashish, specifically for you, when you're talking financial readiness, um, do you guys often bring up the taxes piece and the potentially moving into a different tax bracket depending on what your post retirement income is and things like that? I'm just curious because that's one thing that I've talked to a lot of veterans about, that they weren't prepared for moving into another tax bracket. The ones who had their full retirement and found a well-paying job afterwards changed completely their lifestyle. So I'm just curious if that's part of the conversation when you're doing your assessments and everything.
That's really interesting that you talk to a bunch of veterans who've talked about their taxes. It does come up from time to time, but a lot of times it's not quite that big. It's not their main issue that they're concerned with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does come up. We do kind of talk about some circumstances that involve their taxes, but a lot of times I'm talking to people that are, they're getting the property tax benefit or they're getting some other tax benefits. So they have an advantage. What I, try and help people understand is, look, sometimes you may have an advantage that somebody else in the outside the veteran community doesn't have. So let's use the fact that you've got that advantage and do something with it. Keep that in mind. But yeah, taxes, it's not one of the top topics that comes up, but it does come
Okay.
up from time to time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious. All right. So the question's going to be to both of you. We'll start with Michael here. I've called the resource center, determined that I need benefit services or financial, assistance, readiness planning, that type of thing. What's that look like once I get forwarded to your specific departments or what have you? Just kind of walk us through what that process is going to look like for someone calling in.
Well, you go through the intake team first. So our intake team is kind of a development team. They'll help you
Okay.
access your medical records, any of your military records. They'll send you through that process. That takes about 7 to 10 days for that to happen. Then you transferred into our work queue, our service officer work queue, where our managers distribute the work to all our service officers because we work on a national level.
Right.
So a service officer in Virginia could be helping someone in California. We can do everything electronically. So once you reach a service officer, they will actually file that claim. They'll build what we can call build the claim up, organize all your medical records, put them in kind of a chronological order so that when the VA gets it, they don't have a problem reading it. A lot of times what happens is the VA gets your records and it's just a jumble of mess and it takes them forever to make a decision. We organize that kind of like a liaison, if you will, between that veteran and the VA. We submit that claim and then we track it. And what makes us different than a lot of other organizations is that we case manage. So anybody who comes to us will have a designated service officer that they can talk to on a regular basis to find out what's happening with their claim. And it usually takes, right now, the VA's timeline on their website, it's about 140 days before they decide a claim. But that's very dependent, right? So everybody's not going to get it in 140 days. Some folks get it faster, takes a longer time, but we track that thing throughout its life. And then after that decision is made, we go over the decision with the veteran. And if the veteran's happy, then we move on to the next veteran. But if not, we can help file appeals, supplemental claims, higher level reviews. We even represent at the Board of Veteran Appeals level.
And I can attest to everything you just said. I use you guys for a supplemental claim, as well as helping with my son in the process of the claim going through. Turned 18, so I had to
Awesome.
get him added back in because he was going to be going to college and everything. And your team did an amazing job supporting me through all that and truly the full life of it. So just kudos to you and your team. It's just amazing the work you guys are doing and made it so easy. There was uh, we all understand the VA process is what it is, and your team does a great job of making it easy and taking the stress out of it and everything. So just thank you and your team for that. Um, Ashish, same question to you.
Awesome.
Once we get sent to your department, what's that look like?
Yeah. So, a coordinator will field the call, and he or she will talk to the warrior, find out a little bit, just get some basic information about what are the stresses that they're dealing with, what are the issues that they're dealing with. And then you get assigned to one of the specialists. And the specialist is the person you have a relationship with over however long you need, typically a few months. And the first call is a long one. We spend a lot of time kind of doing as much of a deep dive as you can handle in the moment, finding out what your situation is, trying to understand, asking questions, whether, it's questions about your family situation, your house situation, your job situation, what's going on, and then trying to kind of work with you, developing a plan, coming up with just a couple bullets of things to do between now and our next call, and then giving you some homework to do in that time. A lot of the program is really designed to empower. The Wounded Warrior Project's mission is to honor and empower our veterans. So we're trying to empower people, and the people who really succeed, so the veterans who really succeed are the ones who roll up their sleeves and they go, okay, I'm the one who's got to figure out how much am I spending on, things that I don't need to be spending money on. Maybe too much streaming going on. Maybe I need to, maybe I've got too many cars. You know, we hear all kinds of we hear a lot of really, really interesting stories of things that people are doing. And it's just the work that they do is really what's key. And we're there to help them, to guide them, to support, coach, give them tips. I always try to do a little bit of teaching. So I try and give them little nuggets of information every time I talk to them so that they walked away with something new. So yeah, but you have a relationship with somebody over typically 3 or 4 months and work to help them achieve some of their goals on their own.
That's fantastic. What do you think, Keith?
I think I got to find the mute button. No, I love what both of these programs are doing. I have two separate questions for each of them, so I'll try to, I don't want to, I was going to try to lump them into one big question, but first to Michael, so I like I see red every time I talk to a veteran service member that says, they went to one of those companies that they paid money, right? There's a lot of predatory organizations out there. So what do you do to kind of help educate warriors about the difference, and what are the common mistakes that service members you're finding the service members are making into why they're going to that direction rather than finding an organization like you all?
Well, one of the things is we have videos on our website. So if someone goes to Wounded Warrior Project's website and finds our benefit services team, we have a video that talks about predatory claims and why they shouldn't be going through organizations that charge money. Accredited service officers usually don't charge money. Now, there are some attorneys out there that charge, that are accredited, and that's their job. But organizationally, no one should be charging a veteran to file a claim, and it should all be done for free, and we do it all for free. Some of the mistakes veterans make, or why maybe they're paying, is because they're having a hard time getting the medical evidence. And, their primary care provider may not be willing to write what they call a nexus letter to connect a current diagnosis with an in-service incident. And those are the three elements of a claim that a veteran needs. They need an in-service incident, they need a nexus connecting the current diagnosis, and that third thing is the current diagnosis. If they have those three elements, the claim usually gets granted. But if they're missing one of those elements, they find themselves having to pay for it. And there are companies out there who would take that money in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting on a big point that I tell people is, not all VSO representatives are created equal, right? And so finding an organization that trains their VSOs well and properly, to be prepared to run the full gamut and have that breadth of knowledge is critical as well. Because not to knock anybody, but I met VSOs that they just don't really know. They don't know the language. They don't know the whole process, like so on and so forth. So it's critical information. Right. Ashish, so I liken budgeting to dieting. In that you start out hot and heavy for like a week, and then you just it starts to suck. So I'm just curious, like what sort of, maybe I don't want to use the word incentives, but like benchmarks? Like, do you have benchmarks in place to kind of to keep these service members on track so they don't lose steam over the course of those 3 months? Because I know yeah, budgeting is a 4-letter word when I think about it.
Yeah, and we talk about that. I explain different ways of budgeting. I mean, budgeting can mean slightly different things to different people. Some people do think of it strictly as dieting, like, oh my God, I've got to restrict. What I try to do is focus on let's start with just information gathering as much as possible. To try to make it as easy as possible, we try and give them a variety of tools, and I'm open to whatever works for them, right? So if they need a spreadsheet, if they need to go online and do, there are some online budgets we work with. We work with one with a bank that actually provides an online budget that they can build. And it's got some classes as well as part of that program. Sometimes they've got apps, and people use different apps, and they're always talking about, oh, I'm using this app or that app, and I'll say, okay, download the information from the app and send it to me. Their credit card companies, sometimes you could go onto the website or their app, and they will kind of tell you, okay, you're spending this much on dining, you're spending this much on coffee and things like that. So we're open to, different ways of getting that information, because I know that it's tedious, and it can be especially tedious for people dealing with different types of mental health issues. So we try to be as flexible as we can. If it's, sometimes people need a little bit more hand holding, and then we try and see if we can find some resources maybe in their community to help them with actually building the budget, or members of their family or things like that who are good with there's a lot of times when I'll tell people, maybe your kids, if your kids are older, get them involved, because then it also gets us to help the family have a conversation about the budget, and it helps the parent teach the child a little bit about money management in that process. So, whatever tools we can think of, that work for the specific warrior are the ones we'll pull into play.
Awesome.
That's
What do
that's
you got, Sean?
definitely important, especially the family too. I love tying in the family piece, because we all know uh, that's a big part of it. And I'm as I get 2 boys about to move out, and sitting them down and going, okay, time to budget. And my wife's like, well, they can use our credit card, while they're still in school. I'm like, yeah, but they're still going to budget and pay for food. Otherwise, they're going to be eating lobster every night. I know my kids, so so make sure we get this under control early. All right, so with your 2 specific areas, okay, very important to our veterans in general. One of the things that people are always concerned about are their benefits and their money, and for good reason. So how do you guys handle the tougher situations? Because I'm sure, Mike, your team has dealt with people who are just angry that either their claim didn't go through the way it should have gone through, they didn't get what they thought they should have, and they're angry at the VA, or they're angry at the VSO that helped them, or whoever that may be. Maybe even angry at your team because they didn't get the rating based on the original initial claim. So how do you handle those types of situations? And Ashish will kind of ask you the same question. People get really tense, especially if they're in a bad financial situation. So like, how does your team deal with, the emotion and things like that, and trying to help people when they do deal with people in that type of frame of mind? But Michael, we'll go ahead and start with you.
We definitely we do a lot of training on our team, and from that aspect, right? Keith mentioned something about being educated in the claims area. Well, we do training. We maintain 40 hours of training for that, but we also train our service officers on how to deal with warriors that are upset. And we try to refocus that veteran and say, hey, listen, I know you're not mad at me. You're mad at the situation. So let's be calm about what we're talking about so we can get to a resolution. And 9 times out of 10, they end up calming down in that conversation. But if they can't, we can send referrals to other programs in our organization that can help them, with coping skills. And maybe they're not ready to file a claim. And honestly, the claim's not going to get done that day anyway. So maybe they need some other assistance before they file a claim. So our team usually sends out a referral to one of our other programs to help with that if they can't talk that warrior, off that mountaintop.
Man, I love that. I'm so glad that's what your answer was. That you guys have such a huge organization and so many resources. I love the fact that your team thinks that way. Just absolutely amazing. Ashish, to you.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it piggybacks or dittos what Michael was saying. We do have to kind of look at each individual situation, recognize that the warrior is, sometimes they're coming to us with a lot of emotion. Maybe it's not anger, but it could be other emotions that are challenging for them to deal with. Money can get people upset. Money can be a very, very sensitive topic. And I actually, one of our teammates once said to me, I
Uh-oh.
would much rather
Uh-oh.
talk to a warrior about their suicidal ideation than talk to them about money. And I was just amazed when they said that. And I was like, oh, well, for me, it's kind of the flip. Um, you have to meet them where they are where they're at, kind of really just sort of help them focus on, what is the situation, what is a plan that we can make together moving forward, and how do we take those steps to move those things forward. And if I have to break the steps down into little baby steps, that's part of what I'll do.
Now we've lost them. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're about at time anyway. Keith, I'll hand it over to you to start wrapping it up, and maybe Ashish will join us, for the last few minutes here, but we'll see.
Sure. Yeah. No. So yeah, we're unfortunately at time. I love these topics. I had like two other big questions in the queue, the hopper that I wanted to get out there, but we'll have to bring you back on and do this all over again. But before we go, Michael, and maybe if we can get Sheesh back on, we can ask him the same question. But before we go, how can people? We're on episode 4 this week of so we know about the line, the service line to call. But if people want to like join the organization, like as far as like helping, volunteering, supporting, especially in your lane with especially the BA claims, which is huge, how can people get in touch with you to support?
The best way is to go to our website and register as a warrior. You can also register as a family support member of a warrior. So if they go to the website and register, that is the best way to get in touch with us. And, or the next way is calling that service line and asking for a referral over to the benefits team. Either one of those two ways, you'll get in touch with us, and our intake team will be in touch with you within a couple of days. They usually have like a 48-hour turnaround. So they'll be in touch fast and start developing that claim for you.
Awesome. Yeah, it's truly a one-stop shop, what we're finding this week. So, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show and for
Absolutely.
all that you do for the community. Ashish, if you're listening, it was great having you on as well. No, seriously, both you, what you're doing, it's so incredibly vital. I've done a lot of kind of freelance mentorship on both those topics, and I know how real the struggle can be, not only for the service member, but for you all, trying to help them out sometimes. So it's absolutely amazing work, and
Awesome.
I'm so appreciative. And on behalf of the entire VET S.O.S family, I want to thank everybody for spending time with us today. It's always great having you all along for the ride. Don't forget to check out all of our other episodes and keep coming back for more stories, insight, and support from the VET S.O.S crew. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a follow, share the show, and tell a friend or two, to tell her to. Toss your battle buddies, fire team, shipmates, and wingmen that flotation device that they need. So in transition, so no one drowns in that sea of transition. And as always, grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline.